Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2019 Austrian Grand Prix. Now, as ever, I'll be going over a load of stats, strategy and prediction ahead of this weekend. And of course, you can find timestamps to each segment in the description and in the comment section. But let's get started by having a look at some of the talking points and the information from last year's race. There was plenty of action on the opening lap as Bottas, Hamilton, Raikkonen and Verstappen all squabbled over the first four places, with the Brit taking the lead into the first corner. Bottas was fourth by the time the drivers exited that turn one, but pulled off a double move on Verstappen and Raikkonen on the run two and through turn four. Max also got past Kimi on lap one, but there was a little bit of contact between the two of them. Nico Hülkenberg's power unit gave way in spectacular fashion on lap 12 and the German obviously retired. Later on in the race, we saw an awesome move from Sebastian Vettel on Lewis Hamilton, possibly one of the moves of the season at turn 3, and the German even had half a wheel on the grass to get it done. Great stuff. But I think it's fair to say that the biggest story of the day was the retirement of both the Mercedes drivers due to mechanical issues. Bottas pulled over on lap 14, and Hamilton's race was over on lap 63. So therefore, despite Bottas taking pole, all of those mechanical dramas as well as an opportunistic pit stop under the virtual safety car from Red Bull meant that Max Verstappen took the win ahead of Kimi Raikkonen and Sebastian Vettel. Kimi set the fastest lap on lap 71 with a time of a 106.957 and there were a total of 14 finishes in the end, with a whopping 3 still on the lead lap. As for the circuit, while the track length is 4.318 kilometres, or that's 2.683 miles if you would prefer, there are just the 10 corners around the Red Bull Ring. That's going to be a mouthful today. That's 3 to the left and 7 to the right. And on Sunday, there will be 71 race laps. Once again this year, there are 3 DRS zones. They run from turns 2 to 3, from turns 3 to 4, and of course down the start to finish straight. And the race lap record was set by Kimi Raikkonen last year with a time of a 106.957. It's a short run from pole to the turn 1 apex, just 216.94 metres, and the total pit lane lost time according to Mercedes at 80 kilometres an hour is 16.1 seconds. The highest lateral G is 3.7, that's at turns 8 and 9, and apparently drivers are at full throttle for 65% of the lap. When it comes to overtaking, turn 1 is a great opportunity, obviously, and with loads of runoff, there is somewhere to go if a driver takes a gamble and gets it all wrong. It's not a super quick corner, but it's not as tight as, say, turn 3 or as slow as turn 3, which for me is probably the best place to get a move done. And as I mentioned earlier, we saw a hell of a move there from Seb last year. Turn 4 is also a good spot, not as straightforward as the previous two though, as it's a quicker corner, and if you get it wrong, you're in the gravel, and some people would argue that's how it should be. All 3 of those passing spots, by the way, are preceded by DRS zones as mentioned earlier, so fingers crossed there will be plenty of action this weekend. So since 1970, the track now known as the Red Bull Ring has hosted a total of 30 F1 races, although under some very different layouts it has to be said, and a couple of long breaks from the calendar as well. The most recent saw it disappear after the 2003 event before returning in 2014. Over the years, 23 different drivers have gone on to win, with 9 of those coming from pole position. The average win margin comes in at just over 3.7 seconds, with the biggest gap being a full lap and the lowest less than a tenth of a second back in 1982, so opposite ends of the spectrum there. The safety car has only made 7 appearances, but as with Paul Ricard last time out, the safety car wasn't even officially a thing in F1 until 1993. And the fastest ever lap recorded around the Red Bull Ring is a 103.130, and that was of course set by Valtteri Bottas on his way to pole position last season. As always, thank you to Lights Out Blog for providing some of the stats for this preview. If you are interested in some more Austrian Grand Prix stats, make sure you check out their website and of course give them a follow over on Twitter. Now, the tyre compounds available for this weekend are the hard C2, the medium C3 and the soft C4, with Pirelli rating the tyre stress around the circuit at 2 out of 5, with grip being 2 and abrasion at 1. Last year's winning strategy was a one-stopper, and I think we can fully expect to see teams go down that route again this year. We did see some drivers struggling with blistering though last season, and that could well be a factor again because according to the weather forecast at time of recording, the conditions are expected to be similar to what we saw last weekend in France, hot and sunny, with track temperatures apparently set to hit 50 degrees during the race. So that might lead to a mix of strategy. Obviously, teams are going to want to go for the one-stop race, but if they're going to pull that off, they will likely need a fair bit of tyre management. Super quickly, whilst I'm talking about tyres, it is worth noting that there is a Pirelli tyre test taking place at the Red Bull Ring after this weekend's Grand Prix, with Alfa Romeo testing the prototype 2020 tyres. Exciting stuff. Let's have a quick look at some driver form then before getting on to my predictions. Both the Mercedes drivers have good form in Austria, with Lewis Hamilton picking up 1 win, adding to his 2 podium finishes for a total of 3. And his teammates' record isn't too far off that, to be fair, with Bottas picking up 2 podiums, including 1 win since debuting at the track in 2014, and both drivers have 2 pole positions each. Seb Vettel has okay form at the Red Bull Ring with 2 podium finishes, both of which have come in the last 2 seasons, but he has yet to pick up a win or even a pole position in Austria. Max Verstappen debuted at the track in 2015, finishing in 8th place, and since then has picked up 1 win for a total of 2 podiums, so not at all bad really. And last up from the top 3 teams, Charles Leclerc and Pierre Gasly have both only made the 1 F1 appearance in Austria, with the Frenchman finishing 11th in 2018 and Charles finishing 9th, although he did win the F2 feature race at the track in 2017. Only 1 driver on the current grid debuted in Austria before its return to the calendar in 2014, and that was, of course, Kimi Räikkönen, all the way back in 2001, where he finished 4th. Since then, though, he's gone on to pick up 3 podiums, but has never won or started on pole. I think it's fair to say that Romain Grosjean really kicked off his season in Austria last year with that 4th place finish, and wow, could he do with that again this season. That guy just cannot catch a break. The Frenchman has also scored at each of the last 3 races at the Red Bull Ring, so he might be fairly confident going into this weekend. And finally, Carlos Sainz's form is, well, frankly, not great. His best ever finish at the circuit came in 2016, where he ended up in 8th. But other than that, it's 2 retirements and a 12th place finish. So what about my predictions then? Well, yeah, Mercedes basically. I've gone with Bottas for pole because it's a track that he tends to go well on. And you know what? I'm even going to stick with him for the win. As we've seen a few times this season, and again last time out in France, of course, it seems to be that the first to turn 1 out of those 2 Mercs goes on to win the race. And with a fairly short run to that first corner, he could be well placed if he can deliver that pole position. That being said though, he did drop from 1st to 4th by the exit of turn 1 last year. Ferrari are hopeful they can challenge this weekend, but I'm really not too sure they will. Out of the 2 drivers, Leclerc is probably the one in the best form at the moment, certainly based on what we saw in France, so I've gone with him to take that final podium step. Red Bull could well challenge the Ferraris this weekend, although the team don't seem overly confident to be fair. Despite that though, I have gone with Verstappen for fastest lap. Again, I fully expect them to take advantage of a late stop to grab that point. And my one to watch, or as it should probably be called now, whose weekend can Sean jinx this time, is Sergio Perez. Do you know what? He actually has pretty good form in Austria, only failing to score once, and that was all the way back in 2016. His best finish at the track is 6th, and his highest ever start was 7th in 2017, so he might go well this weekend. It wasn't a great Grand Prix in France for the Mexican or really the team as a whole, and although it hasn't been a bad start to the season for him, having scored 13 points so far, Checo actually hasn't scored a single point since Baku, so he could really do with a solid result this time out. That is it then for the Austrian Grand Prix preview, but don't forget you can let me know your thoughts ahead of this weekend's race in the comment section down below. Now, I will be back on Saturday with the qualifying report, and of course we will be live shortly after the race on Sunday with the usual reaction stream. In the meantime though, you can follow me over on social media and all of the links you need are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.